The silver ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls reflecting sunlight in ways that human eyes found almost painful to witness. Hundreds of cameras tracked their approach as they settled into orbit, maintaining a perfect formation that spoke of technology far beyond anything humanity had achieved. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the United Defense Council headquarters, watching the alien vessels with a mixture of wonder and unease. She had spent 15 years in special operations, had seen combat on 3 continents, and knew the look of a military blockade when she saw one. "They are not here to make friends," she muttered to herself. Ambassador Chen Wei joined her at the window, his reflection ghostly in the reinforced glass. He carried a data tablet that glowed with translated messages from the visitors. "The Galactic Concordat," Chen said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. 47 species, thousands of worlds, and they want to talk. "Talk or dictate?" Elena asked. Chen's silence was answer enough. The meeting took place in Geneva, in a hastily prepared chamber that could accommodate the wildly different physiologies of the Concordat representatives. The lead diplomat was a being called Dex Call, a towering creature with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. His translator device rendered his words into flat, emotionless English. "Humanity has achieved faster-than-light travel," Dex Call announced, as if this were a crime. "This development has brought you to our attention." Chen Wei sat at the human delegation table, flanked by representatives from every major nation. He kept his expression neutral and professional. "We are honored by your visit," Chen replied. "We hope this marks the beginning of friendly relations between our species." Dex Call's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture the human xenobiologists would later identify as contempt. "The Concordat does not offer friendship to emerging species," Dex Call said. "We offer protection. Your species will accept protected status. You will cease all military development, submit your industrial output to Concordat oversight, and allow our administrators to guide your expansion into space." The chamber erupted in angry murmurs. Chen raised a hand to quiet his colleagues. "You are describing vassalage, not protection," Chen said carefully. "We are describing survival," Dex Call countered. 47 species have accepted this arrangement. They thrive under Concordat guidance. You will comply within 30 standard cycles, approximately 42 of your days, or face economic and military correction. Elena watched the proceedings from a secure room, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Military correction, the universal euphemism for war. "They think we are primitives," muttered General Rodriguez, the head of UDC military operations. "They looked at our tech and decided we are not worth respecting." "They might be right about our tech," Elena said, "but they are wrong about us." The next 40 days were chaos. Earth's governments argued endlessly about the response. Some nations advocated immediate acceptance. Better to survive as subjects than die as free people. Others demanded defiance, unwilling to surrender humanity's future to alien overlords. Elena spent those days preparing for the worst. She assembled teams from every special forces unit on Earth, people who understood that conventional warfare against superior technology was suicide. They needed something else, something the Concordat would not expect. "We cannot outgun them," she told her assembled operatives in a classified briefing. "We cannot outbuild them, but we can do what humans have always done when facing stronger enemies. We adapt, we improvise, and we make them regret underestimating us." Ambassador Chen worked through diplomatic channels, trying to buy time and gather information. The Concordat representatives were willing to explain their technology, their society, their history, because they believed none of it mattered. They saw humanity as children playing with dangerous toys. Their ships use quantum-locked navigation systems, Chen reported to the UDC Council. Their weapons are plasma-based with energy shielding that makes conventional kinetic weapons useless. They have surveillance technology that can track heat signatures from 3 light years away. Then how do we fight them? Someone asked. Chun looked at Elena, who had been listening quietly. We don't fight them the way they expect, Elena said. They have better shields? We don't shoot at the shields. They have better sensors? We disappear from their sensors. They think we are primitive? We show them that primitive does not mean helpless. The deadline approached like an executioner's blade. Humanity's answer was delivered by Chun Wei in a carefully worded statement that was broadcast across all channels. The people of Earth appreciate the Concordat's concern for our welfare, Chun said, his voice carrying the weight of 8 billion souls. However, we must respectfully decline protected status. We seek friendship and equal partnership with all species, but we will not surrender our sovereignty. We hope the Concordat will respect our decision and join us in building a relationship based on mutual respect. Dexcal's response was immediate and cold. Your species has chosen extinction over wisdom. The Concordat will now implement correction protocols. Your colonies will be blockaded. Your trade routes will be seized. Your military assets will be neutralized. When you are ready to accept reality, we will be waiting. The Concordat fleet moved with terrifying efficiency. Human colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan found themselves surrounded by alien warships. Trading vessels were turned back or confiscated. Communication relays were jammed. But something strange happened in the following weeks. The human colonies did not surrender or panic, they went silent. Ships stopped transmitting. Settlements ceased all external communications. From the Concordat's perspective, it looked like humanity was either preparing for a desperate last stand or had given up entirely. Admiral Dexcal, watching from his command ship, felt a flicker of satisfaction. This was how it always went. The new species made their brave speeches, faced the reality of Concordat power, and then quietly submitted. Maintain the blockades, he ordered his fleet commanders. Let them sit in silence and contemplate their foolishness. They will call for negotiations within a month. But Elena Vasquez stood in a darkened command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the same tactical displays as the Concordat admiral. Around her, operators worked in near silence, coordinating movements that would not appear on any enemy sensor. Phase 1 is complete, she reported to General Rodriguez. All assets are in position. The colonies know their roles. And if this doesn't work, Rodriguez asked. Elena's smile was cold and dangerous. Then, we make sure they remember that humans are very, very good at fighting in the dark, she said. The Concordat chose war. Now they will learn what that really means. 3 months into the blockade, the first reports began filtering up the Concordat chain of command reports that Admiral Dexcal initially dismissed as equipment failures or operator error. Supply Convoy 7 Alpha had simply vanished between 2 jump points. No distress signal, no debris field, no evidence of attack. One moment, the convoy's transponders showed normal operation. The next moment, there was nothing. Check the navigation logs, Dexcal ordered. The convoy probably jumped to the wrong coordinates. But the logs showed correct navigation. The ships had entered the jump point and never emerged on the other side. Then came the incident at Listening Post Meridian. The entire crew of 40 Concordat personnel were found alive but unconscious in there. Cryosleep pods they had never entered voluntarily. The station sensors showed no unauthorized entry, no weapon signatures, no explanation at all. Wake them up and ask them what happened, Dexcal demanded. The crew had no memory of the event. One moment they were at their stations. The next, they were waking up in medical bay with 3 days missing from their lives. More incidents followed with increasing frequency. Patrol ships drifted off course with their crews sedated. Communication relays went offline without warning. Mining operations found their equipment sabotaged in ways that suggested intimate knowledge of Concordat technology. The Concordat High Command convened emergency sessions. Their scientists insisted it was impossible. Their sensors would detect any human ships. Their shields would stop any human weapons. Their security protocols were unbreakable. Perhaps the humans have developed something new, suggested Commander Veloxis, a cautious officer who specialized in tactical analysis. Impossible, Lexcol scoffed. We have complete sensor coverage. Our detection grids can identify a ship's heat signature from 3 light years away. If human vessels were operating in these sectors, we would see them. But they saw nothing, and that was exactly what Elena Vasquez had counted on. 6 months earlier, when the ultimatum had first arrived, Elena had assembled Earth's best engineers and asked them one question: how do you hide in space? The answer had come from Dr. Sarah Chun, a physicist who specialized in thermodynamics. You can't hide from the Concordat sensors because ships produce heat, she had explained. Engines create heat, life support creates heat, even your crew's bodies create heat. But what if we don't produce heat? What if we run completely cold? They called it the Shadow Protocol. Human ships were retrofitted with massive heat sinks that could absorb all thermal output for days or even weeks. Crews worked in near-freezing temperatures, wearing thermal suits. Ships drifted on momentum rather than active engines, looking like space debris or asteroids on enemy sensors. The first shadow ships had launched during humanity's communications blackout. While the Concordat watched Earth's colonies go silent, hundreds of small vessels had slipped past the blockades, cold, dark, and invisible. Elena herself commanded one such vessel, the Nightfall, as it drifted toward a Concordat supply depot. Her crew of 12 had been living in their thermal suits for 8 days, breathing carefully to minimize heat output. The ship's interior was so cold that frost formed on the walls. "Target acquired," whispered Lieutenant Marcus Torres, his breath visible in the frigid air. Concordat Supply Depot designated Theta 9. 23 ships docked, minimal security patrol. "Begin the approach," Elena ordered. "Remember, no active systems until we are committed. We are just another piece of space junk." The Nightfall drifted closer, hidden among genuine debris from an old asteroid mining operation. Concordat sensors swept past them repeatedly, detecting nothing unusual. To their instruments, Elena's ship was just another cold rock in an empty sector. When they were close enough, Elena's team deployed not in flashy assault shuttles, but in individual maneuvering units that looked like maintenance drones. They matched the depot's rotation, attached to its hull, and used cutting tools to breach through a waste disposal port. The entire infiltration took 6 hours. 6 hours of slow, methodical movement while Concordat personnel went about their duties, completely unaware of the humans creeping through their station's maintenance tunnels. Elena's objective was not destruction. It was disruption. Her team accessed the depot's main computer core and uploaded a virus designed by Earth's best cyber warfare specialists. The virus would corrupt navigation data, sending Concordat ships to wrong coordinates, creating chaos without triggering immediate alarms. "Upload complete," Torres whispered. "Shall we leave a calling card?" Elena considered it, then nodded. They spray-painted a simple message in the depot's control room: "You cannot blockade what you cannot see." They were gone before anyone found it. Similar operations were happening across Concordat space. Other shadow ships targeted communication relays, mining facilities, and isolated patrol vessels. They never killed anyone. That was critical to Elena's strategy. That aliens would turn this into a war of extermination. Confused, frightened, sleeping aliens created doubt and uncertainty. One team, led by Commander Jackson Hayes, managed to board a Concordat cruiser by hiding its own supply containers. They sedated the crew using a gas that Earth's biologists had tailored specifically for Concordat physiology, fast-acting but completely harmless. The cruiser drifted into a star system's debris field and was not found for 2 weeks. Back on Earth, Ambassador Chen Wei monitored the Concordat's growing confusion through intercepted communications. He smiled as he read increasingly frantic reports from Concordat commanders trying to explain the impossible. "They still don't believe we are responsible," Chen told General Rodriguez. "They think it's equipment failures or some kind of space anomaly." "How long until they figure it out?" Rodriguez asked. "Not long," Chen admitted. "But by then, we will have established the pattern. We will have shown them that their vaunted technology has blind spots." Meanwhile, on the occupied colony of Europa, Ambassador Chen's younger sister Lu Wei organized resistance among the human settlers. The Concordat had left a small garrison to maintain order, never imagining that humans would resist. Liu Wei's group did not fight with weapons, they fought with information. They hacked Concordat communication systems and broadcast messages to every alien species they could reach. "The Concordat tells you they bring order and peace," Liu Wei's voice echoed across subspace channels. "But they bring tyranny and slavery. They could not conquer us through force, so they conquer us through blockade. Is this the great civilization that rules the galaxy? Stand with humanity or stand aside, but know that we will never surrender our freedom." The broadcasts were impossible to trace and impossible to stop. Liu Wei's team moved constantly, using equipment hidden throughout Europa's vast ice tunnels. Dex Call watched his orderly conquest dissolve into chaos. Supplies went missing, crews reported strange incidents, and now human propaganda was spreading across Concordat networks. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. "Increase patrols," he ordered. "Double the sensor sweeps. Find these humans and end this embarrassment." But Elena's shadow ships continued their work, ghosts in the darkness of space. And with each successful operation, humanity's confidence grew. They were not winning the war, not yet, but they were proving something far more important. They were proving that the Concordat could bleed. Admiral Dex Call's patience had reached its end. 6 months of mysterious incidents, vanishing supplies, and sedated crews had transformed his certain victory into a galactic embarrassment. The Concordat High Command demanded results, and political rivals whispered that perhaps humans were more dangerous than Dex Call admitted. "No more half measures," Dex Call declared to his assembled fleet commanders. "We strike at their homeworld. Earth must fall, and it must fall decisively. Once their cradle is conquered, these humans will understand the futility of resistance." Thus began Operation Cleansing Light, a massive fleet of 200 Concordat warships, the largest military force assembled in a generation. They would jump directly into Earth's solar system, destroy all orbital infrastructure, and force humanity's unconditional surrender. The fleet gathered at Rally Point Epsilon, a staging area just outside human-monitored space. The Exquilus flagship, the Infinite Glory, gleamed at the center of the formation 5 kilometers of Concordat engineering and firepower. "All ships report ready status," came the reports from hundreds of vessels. Dex Call allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Let the humans hide in shadows and play their tricks. This armada would sweep aside all resistance like light banishing darkness. "Execute the jump," he commanded. "Destination: Earth." Space folded, reality bent, and 200 warships emerged in Earth's solar system. They found nothing. Elena Vasquez watched the Concordat fleet appear on her tactical display, exactly where intelligence had predicted. She stood in a command bunker on Luna, Earth's moon, surrounded by the best tactical minds humanity could muster. "They took the bait," General Rodriguez said with grim satisfaction. "They came expecting easy prey." The Concordat fleet advanced toward Earth, their sensors sweeping space for targets. Earth's orbital platforms stood empty and dark, no power signatures, no heat, no signs of life. The massive defense stations that had orbited Earth for decades appeared abandoned. "Where are they?" Dexcall demanded. "Where are the human defenders?" His tactical officers studied the sensor data with growing confusion. "Admiral, the orbital platforms show no activity. Their weapon systems are offline. It appears Earth has been evacuated." Dexcall felt a chill run through his body. Something was wrong. Humans did not evacuate their homeworld without a fight. "Advance with caution," he ordered. "Full sensor sweeps. I want to know where every human ship is hiding." The Concordat fleet moved into Earth's orbit, their formations tight and professional. They approached the silent defense platforms, weapons charged and shields at maximum. That was when Elena gave the order. "Execute Midnight Protocol," she said quietly. "All units engage." Space around the Concordat fleet erupted in chaos. The abandoned defense platforms came alive, but not with weapons. Instead, they exploded in carefully controlled sequences, releasing clouds of debris that had been packed into every available space. Millions of fragments, metal shards, ice particles, ceramic dust expanded outward in precisely calculated patterns. The debris clouds hit the Concordat shields and dissipated harmlessly, exactly as Elena had planned. The fragments were not meant to damage the ships. They were meant to blind them. Concordat sensors, designed to track heat and energy signatures across light years, suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by billions of reflective particles. Every sensor screen showed static and false readings. The precise targeting systems that made Concordat weapons so deadly became useless. "I cannot see," Dexcall's tactical officer shouted. "Admiral, our sensors are compromised." In the confusion, humanity struck. Shadow ships that had been hiding in the moon's shadow, cooled to near absolute zero, suddenly activated. But they did not charge forward like conventional warships. They moved fast and erratically, using momentum and quick bursts of thrust to dart through the debris clouds. These vessels were small, no larger than Concordat shuttles, painted in sensor-absorbing black and carrying weapons that seemed primitive by galactic standards. But Elena had not chosen them for power. She had chosen them for precision. Lieutenant Torres piloted his fighter through the chaos with the skill that came from 1,000 hours in flight simulators. Around him, 20 other pilots did the same, each one threading through the debris field like needles through cloth. "Targeting communication arrays," Torres reported. "Lock acquired." He fired not plasma or energy weapons, but old-fashioned missiles with shaped charges. The missiles struck a Concordat cruiser's external antenna array, severing its connection to the fleet network. Across the battlefield, other fighters did the same. They did not try to destroy the massive alien warships that would be impossible. Instead, they targeted specific systems, communication relays, sensor arrays, external weapons pods, even the bridge windows. One pilot, Commander Sarah Okafor, managed to place 3 missiles directly into a battleship's life support intake. The ship did not explode, but its crew suddenly found themselves breathing recycled air, contaminated with knockout gas, another gift from Earth's chemical warfare specialists. The Concordat fleet tried to respond, but their coordination had collapsed. Ships could not communicate with each other through the debris field. Weapons officers fired blindly, hitting nothing or worse, hitting their own vessels. Admiral Dexcall gripped his command throne as the infinite glory shuddered from impacts. "Retreat," he finally shouted. "All ships, execute emergency jump to rally coordinates." The fleet scattered, ships jumping away in panic disorder. Some jumped too close to each other, their warp fields interfering and sending them off course. Others remained trapped in Earth's orbit, their navigation systems damaged by precision strikes. When the debris finally settled and sensors cleared, Dexcall took stock of the disaster. 83 ships had suffered significant damage. 15 were still trapped in Earth's orbit. And most humiliating, not a single Concordat vessel had successfully engaged a human target. Back on Luna, Elena allowed herself a brief smile. "Casualty report," she asked. "3 fighters damaged, all pilots recovered," Rodriguez replied. "No fatalities." The battle, if it could even be called that, had lasted 17 minutes. Humanity had faced the largest Concordat fleet in a generation and won, not through superior firepower but through superior tactics. But Elena knew this was only the beginning. The Concordat had been embarrassed, not defeated. They would come back, angrier and more cautious. "What happens now?" General Rodriguez asked. Elena pulled up a star chart showing Concordat space. Red markers indicated human operations throughout their territory: sabotage, propaganda, covert alliances with dissatisfied species. "Now we take the war to them," Elena said. "Not with armies or fleets, but with the one weapon they cannot defend against doubt. We make them question everything. Their technology, their superiority, their right to rule." Meanwhile, across Concordat space, Muway's broadcasts had sparked something unexpected. Minor species within the Concordat began asking dangerous questions. If humans could resist, why could they not? If the mighty fleet had been turned back at Earth, perhaps the Concordat was not invincible. Ambassador Chun received secret communications from 3 alien species, small nations within the Concordat, who suggested they might be willing to trade information for human support. "They smell blood in the water," Chun told his staff. "The Concordat's veneer of invincibility is cracking." Admiral Deskal sat alone in his quarters aboard the damaged Infinite Glory, staring at tactical recordings of the battle. He watched human fighters darting through the chaos, watched his mighty fleet reduced to confusion and disorder. For the first time in his military career, Dexcall felt something he had never expected to feel about primitive species. He felt fear. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the Concordat found itself fighting a war unlike any in its 1,000-year history. They controlled territory, but had lost strategic initiative. They possessed superior technology, but could not locate their enemy. They commanded vast resources, but found those resources constantly sabotaged. Elena Vasquez stood in the war room aboard humanity's new mobile command ship, studying reports from across Concordat space. Her hair had grown longer during the campaign, tied back in a practical braid. Dark circles under her eyes spoke of endless strategy sessions and sleepless nights. "What do we have?" she asked her team. Lieutenant Torres brought up a holographic display showing dozens of ongoing operations. Operation Phantom Wind successfully disrupted 3 more supply lines, he reported. The Concordat has started using automated cargo drones to compensate, but our cyber teams have already compromised their control codes. Commander Sarah Okafor finished with a grin. "The drones now deliver supplies to coordinates we provide." Elena nodded. Humanity had evolved beyond simple sabotage. They now practice what military historians would later call asymmetric dominance. Every Concordat system had a weakness, and human operatives found them all. Their automated defenses? Corrupted with viruses that made them attack maintenance crews. Their biological weapons? Countered with vaccines that Earth scientists developed faster than Concordat researchers believed possible. Their psychological warfare? Turned back against them with propaganda that spread through Concordat networks like wildfire. But the greatest shift was happening at the political level. Ambassador Shen Wei had been busy building a coalition. The Kethrak, a reptilian species tired of Concordat dominance, had signed a secret alliance with humanity. They provided intelligence on Concordat military movements in exchange for human technology and training. Two other species, the Vrel and the Mactans, had declared neutrality, a polite way of saying they would no longer support Concordat military operations. 8 more species were negotiating quietly with human diplomats. The Concordat is fracturing, Chun reported during a secure video conference with Elena. Their political unity was always fragile, built on fear and superiority. Now that fear is turning inward. Good, Elena said. But we need something decisive. Something that proves the Concordat leadership has been lying to their own people. Chun leaned forward. I might have something, he said carefully. Our Kethrak contacts provided information about Concordat Central, the capital station. They keep extensive records there, including classified communications from when they decided to subjugate humanity. Elena felt her pulse quicken. You think we can get inside? I think you can get inside, Chun corrected. The station hosts diplomatic functions regularly. If we could infiltrate during one of those events, access their records, and broadcast the truth, it would show that this war was never about protecting emerging species. Elena finished. It was about control and profit. Military contracts, resource extraction, political power. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. Concordat Central was the most heavily defended location in the galaxy, home to the High Command and thousands of personnel. But Elena had learned that the most secure places often had the biggest blind spots. They relied so heavily on their technology that they forgot about human ingenuity. 3 weeks later, Elena and a team of 5 specialists approached Concordat Central aboard a stolen diplomatic courier. They had acquired the ship from a corrupt Vrel official who sympathized with humanity's cause. The ship's identification codes were genuine. Its passengers were listed as Vrel trade negotiators. Approaching security checkpoint, Lieutenant Torres whispered from the pilot's seat. All pretenses in place. Elena sat in the passenger cabin, her face covered with sophisticated bio-makeup that made her look like a Vrel. The disguise would not fool a medical scanner, but should pass visual inspection. Her team wore similar disguises. The security checkpoint scanned their ship with the bored efficiency of guards who had checked thousands of vessels. Purpose of visit? The Concordat security officer asked. Trade negotiation regarding mineral rights, Torres replied in perfect Vrel dialect. We have an appointment with Commerce Minister Valaxis. The appointment was real. Chun's diplomatic contacts had arranged it through channels that would not raise suspicion. The minister believed he was meeting actual Vrel representatives. Proceed to Docking Bay 17, the security officer said, waving them through. Elena exhaled slowly. First barrier cleared. Concordat Central was a marvel of engineering, a space station the size of a small moon, housing millions of beings from dozens of species. Its corridors gleamed with artificial light. Its gardens contained plants from 100 worlds. Its architecture spoke of wealth and power. Elena and her team moved through the crowds with practiced confidence. Their disguises held up under casual observation. They split into pairs to avoid drawing attention, each team heading to different objectives. Elena and Torres made their way to the Central Data Archive, hidden deep in the station's administrative sector. Along the way, they passed Concordat soldiers, government officials, and even Admiral Zegskal himself, though the Admiral did not spare them a glance. How do we get inside? Torres whispered. Elena had spent weeks studying the archive's security. The entrance required bioauthentication from authorized personnel, impossible to fake. But she had noticed something in the schematics that Chun's contacts provided. We don't go through the door, she said. We go through the ventilation system. They found a maintenance access panel in a rarely used corridor. Torres used a plasma cutter to open it, working quickly. Inside, the ventilation shaft was barely large enough for a human to crawl through. Just like training, Elena muttered, pulling herself into the narrow space. They crawled for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. The shaft opened into a maintenance area directly adjacent to the archive server room. One more barrier, a security door with electronic locks. Torres pulled out a device that looked like a data tablet, but was actually a sophisticated hacking tool developed by Earth's best computer scientists. He connected it to the door's control panel. Bypassing security protocols, he whispered. This might take a few minutes. Those minutes felt eternal. Elena watched the corridor, her hand resting on a concealed weapon that fired tranquilizer darts. If they were discovered now, everything would fail. The lock clicked. Torres pulled the door open, revealing rows of servers containing the Concordat's most sensitive data. Elena moved quickly, connecting her own device to the main data core. She had specific search parameters, communications from the Concordat High Command regarding humanity, particularly from the months before the ultimatum. Files flowed across her screen. She found exactly what she needed: private messages between Concordat leaders discussing how to profit from humanity's subjugation. References to military contracts, resource extraction rights, political favors. They had never cared about protecting humanity. They saw Earth as a prize to be divided among the powerful. Got it, Elena said, copying everything. But as the data transferred, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Security breach in Sector 9. Came announcements in multiple languages. All personnel report. Torres cursed. That is not us, he said. Someone else triggered security. One of their other teams must have been discovered. They had minutes, maybe seconds, before the entire station went into lockdown. Download is at 70%, Elena said through gritted teeth. Come on. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Security teams were sweeping the area. 85%, Elena whispered. The door handle rattled. Someone was trying to enter. 98%. The door burst open. Concordat guards charged in, weapons drawn. Torres fired his tranquilizer gun, dropping 2 of them. Elena grabbed her device as the download reached 100%. But more guards were coming. They were trapped in a small room with one exit. Elena made a split-second decision. She pulled out a small device, an electromagnetic pulse generator that would fry all electronics in a 10-meter radius, including her precious data. But it would also disable the guards' weapons and the door locks. Cover your eyes, she shouted. She triggered the pulse. Lights went out, weapons died, and locks disengaged throughout the sector. In the confusion, Elena and Torres sprinted through the darkened corridors, dodging blind guards and panicked personnel. They found an emergency airlock and sealed themselves inside. Please tell me you transmitted the data before the pulse, Torres gasped. Elena smiled grimly and held up her device. The pulse had fried its circuits, but not before she had wirelessly transmitted everything to their ship and to Ambassador Chun's secure network. Already halfway across the galaxy, she said. Now we just need to get out alive. They hijacked the maintenance shuttle, blasting away from Concordat Central as security forces scrambled to respond. Alarms rang throughout the station. Ships launched in pursuit. But Elena had one more trick. As their shuttle fled, Ambassador Chen Wei uploaded the stolen data to every public network in Concordat space news feeds, government channels, even entertainment broadcasts. Millions of Concordat citizens suddenly saw the truth about their leadership's corruption. The evidence was undeniable, their own leaders' words condemning them. The revelation of Concordat corruption spread like fire through dry grass. Within days, protests erupted on 17 member worlds. Citizens who had believed they served a benevolent galactic order discovered they had been tools of political manipulation and profit. Admiral Dex Call watched his carefully constructed military campaign crumble into political disaster. The High Command demanded he suppress the protests, but 12 species had already withdrawn their support. 8 more declared neutrality. His once mighty coalition was fracturing. "Order the fleet to stand down," came the command from Concordat leadership. "We must stabilize the political situation before military operations can continue." Dex Call slumped in his command chair. Stand down, the polite term for admitting defeat. These humans had not beaten him with superior weapons or tactics alone. They had exposed the rot at the heart of the Concordat itself. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in his office on Earth, reading reports from across the galaxy with quiet satisfaction. The data Elena had risked her life to obtain was doing more damage than 1,000 warships could have inflicted. 12 species have formally withdrawn from the Concordat, his aide reported. 8 have declared neutrality. Even core member species are demanding political reforms. Chun smiled. War was not just about defeating enemies. It was about creating conditions where your enemies could not continue fighting. Humanity had done exactly that. But the hardliners in the Concordat were not finished. A faction of military commanders and conservative politicians demanded one final attempt to crush human resistance. They could not accept that primitive beings had humiliated the greatest galactic power. "We must make an example," one Concordat senator declared. "If we allow humans to defy us, every minor species will think they can do the same." They authorized a covert operation, assassinate the human diplomatic delegation during upcoming peace negotiations. Kill Ambassador Chen Wei and destroy humanity's moral leadership. The galaxy would see it as proof that humans were vulnerable, that resistance was futile. The attempt came 2 weeks later. Chun stood in a neutral space station where preliminary peace talks were scheduled. Around him, diplomats from 24 species gathered to witness history. The station was officially demilitarized, but Chen's security team remained alert. Elena Vasquez was there too, officially as a military advisor, but really as Chen's personal protection. She had survived too many operations to trust official security arrangements. The assassins came during a reception, disguised as service staff. 6 highly trained operatives with concealed weapons, moving toward the human delegation with lethal precision. They never reached their targets. Elena's team had been tracking suspicious individuals since arriving at the station. When the assassins drew weapons, human security responded instantly. Lieutenant Torres dropped one attacker with a tranquilizer dart. Commander Okafor tackled another. Elena herself disarmed a third in a brief, brutal struggle that left both of them bruised. The remaining assassins tried to flee but found their escape routes blocked. Elena had anticipated every possible attack vector. When station security arrived, they found all 6 assassins alive and restrained. More importantly, Elena's team had recorded everything, including communications between the assassins and their Concordat handlers. "Release this to every news network in the galaxy," Elena told Chun. "Let everyone see what the Concordat leadership tried to do during peace negotiations." The recordings proved devastating. Even Concordat citizens who had defended their government's actions could not excuse attempted assassination during diplomatic talks. The remaining political support for continuing the war evaporated overnight. 3 days later, formal peace negotiations began. The venue was neutral territory, a space station owned by an independent species. Human delegates arrived in ships that had fought the entire war shadow vessels that had struck fear into Concordat hearts. But they came not for battle, but for resolution. Elena stood behind Ambassador Chun as he entered the negotiation chamber. The room contained representatives from 47 species, the full Concordat membership, or what remained of it. Admiral Dexcall was there too, his posture rigid with barely controlled anger. He looked at Elena and saw not a primitive being but the architect of his humiliation. "Let us begin," said the mediator, an elderly being from a species that had remained neutral throughout the conflict. The negotiations were tense. Concordat hardliners demanded reparations from humanity for destroyed property. Human delegates countered with their own demands: recognition of sovereignty, punishment for those who authorized the assassination attempt, and fundamental reforms to prevent future wars of aggression. "You cannot demand we change our entire society," one Concordat senator protested. "The Concordat has maintained galactic order for 1,000 years. Chun stood, his voice calm but firm. "You maintained order through force and intimidation," he said. "You grew comfortable in your superiority and forgot that every species deserves respect. Humanity is not asking you to abandon your society. We are asking you to honor the principles you claim to uphold." The debate raged for days. Some Concordat members wanted to continue fighting. Others recognized that the war was already lost. The coalition had fractured, public opinion had turned, and military campaigns had proven futile. Finally, a compromise emerged. The Concordat would recognize humanity's independence and sovereignty. Human colonies would be freed from blockade. Most importantly, humans would receive a seat on the reformed Galactic Council with equal voting rights. But Chun made one more demand, one that surprised even his own delegation. "Humanity will share our stealth technology and tactical doctrine with all species, not just Concordat members," he announced. The chamber erupted in confusion. "You would give away your military advantage?" Dexcall asked, genuinely baffled. "We would ensure no single species can dominate others through technological superiority," Chun replied. "The Concordat controlled the galaxy because you had better weapons and better shields. What happens when everyone has access to the same tools? You must cooperate as equals or face endless conflict." It was strategic genius disguised as generosity. By sharing humanity's innovations, Chun ensured that galactic politics would never again be determined by military might alone. The Concordat could not threaten weaker species, because those species would now have the means to resist. Some Concordat members protested, but others, particularly the smaller species who had always resented being dominated, embraced the proposal. The vote was close, but ultimately the measure passed. The treaty was signed 3 weeks later. Humanity gained everything it had fought for: independence, recognition, and a voice in galactic affairs. The Concordat agreed to fundamental reforms, including limits on military intervention and greater autonomy for member species. Admiral Dexcall signed the treaty on behalf of the Concordat military. As he affixed his seal to the document, he looked at Elena across the chamber. "You fought well, Commander," he said quietly. "Better than I believed possible." Elena nodded with respect. "You gave us no choice but to fight well," she replied. "Perhaps next time you will choose diplomacy before war." "Perhaps," Dexcall said. "Or perhaps we will be ready for your tricks." Elena smiled. "We certainly hope so. A galaxy where everyone is ready for tricks is a galaxy where everyone is equals." 10 years later, Elena Vasquez stood in a small classroom on Mars, teaching tactical theory to a new generation of officers. The war that had defined her life was now history, studied and analyzed but no longer fought. Her students came from a dozen different species: human, Kethrak, Vrel, and even a few young Concordat officers sent to learn from the victors. The galaxy had changed. Species that once fought now trained together. Technology that once gave advantages to the powerful was now shared among equals. Ambassador Chen Wei, now Earth's first galactic counselor, visited her classroom one day. The student stood respectfully as he entered. Commander Vasquez was the finest tactical mind of the war, Chun told them. But her greatest achievement was not winning battles. It was proving that strength comes from ingenuity, not just firepower. Elena felt embarrassed by the praise. "We did what humans have always done," she said. "We adapted. We survived. We refused to fight the war our enemies expected." Chun smiled and looked at the diverse group of students. "And now you teach that wisdom to the galaxy," he said. "That is the true victory, not conquest, but knowledge shared freely." After class, Elena walked through Mars Colony's observation dome, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, shadow ships still patrolled human space, still practiced the tactics that had won the war. But now they patrolled peacefully, defenders rather than warriors. A memorial stood in the dome's center, listing the names of humans who had died during the conflict. Not many Elena's strategy had deliberately avoided casualties, but each name represented someone who had believed humanity deserved to stand as equals among the stars. The memorial's inscription read, "To those who fought in the shadows so humanity could walk in the light." Elena read it for the 1,000th time and felt a familiar mixture of pride and sorrow. They had won the war, changed the galaxy, and proven that being underestimated could be its own advantage. But the greatest legacy was simpler than tactics or treaties. They had shown the galaxy that,